Welcome to the Seattle Sports Union podcast. My name is Abraham DeWeese. I'm back again with the Soulman, Brian Solack, and Jason Puckett. How's it going, Jason Puckett?
I'm doing well, boys. How are you guys doing? Good to be
Dude,
back with you. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you. We're doing great. It's the start of football season, man. This feels like you, even through all the smoke and dust and all the debris that's in the air, it's starting to feel like fall to me.
Yeah, it's a great time of year, isn't it? It's you got football and baseball. Even though our baseball team is falling by the wayside, it feels like with every day. But it's the best time of year. I think as a sports fan, I don't know if there's a better time of year than the fall than September when those all mesh, right? Football and baseball, and it's a thrill. I love it.
I'd say September and March, right? March because you got March Madness and baseball's about to start. So those are the two yin and yang for me.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's just I always think your head is on a swivel. Sometimes I just can't keep up with all of it.
It is hard. I know you want to talk football, but he mentioned baseball.
Okay.
What the hell's wrong with our Seattle Mariners, Puck? I mean, the starting pitching is god awful. The bullpen is so-so. Our hitting's actually decent. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Man, I wish I had the answer, Brian. I really do. I don't know. I mean, I just think it's a lot of things. I think that the pitching has really just been kind of a head scratcher all year long.
Yeah.
And, they banged up with a bunch of injuries, to start the season, and then just guys, not performing like they did. And it's probably an unfair expectation that they were always going to, be as effective as they were for the past, 3 years. And it's just kind of caught up to them. They just look like a tired bunch. Guys are playing a lot. Not a lot, they haven't had a lot of depth on this team overall, and I think it's just kind of catching up to them. And they're going to limp to it, and they may get in, and then maybe they get a little bit of a breather. But yeah, it's the pitching has been, for me at least, kind of the storyline all year long. Is just not as effective nor dominant that it was in years past.
Is it a little bit concerning that they've been cutting a lot of players that they just picked up this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a trial and error. I mean, I think they, like a lot of teams, they probably just throw a lot against the wall and kind of see what sticks. And
yeah,
I think when the season started, I think the foundation, some of the core of the team, you're like, okay, they didn't add anything. Then they get the deadline, they get a shot in the arm. Okay, this is great, but probably a little too late, right, to add to it. And when you don't add in the offseason and you hope that you have a solution over at third base, and then it's going to leave a hole at second base, and it mounted on them, and there just was probably too many what ifs heading into the season, and then the depth just didn't help them out. And I don't think they would have foreseen that a guy like Dylan Moore just would have been as bad as he was and struggled as much.
Yeah.
And you forget how great he was in the beginning of the season. I mean, offensively at the time he was carrying them. So,
yeah, I had him on my fantasy team. That's how crazy the tides turned.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He was great in the beginning, and then it fell off for him. And I just think that they so inconsistent all year long. And I just still don't think from an offensive standpoint they really know who they are. A lot has been made last year. How they wanted to play and how they wanted to get more guys on base, cut down on the strikeouts, and maybe hit some more doubles and run a little bit more. But they really are what they have been for the last few years, and that's a team that gets guys on base and then they wait for the 3-run home run.
Yeah,
that's just been the story all year.
How much blame can Dan Wilson take? I mean, rookie manager and all. I think he's done a pretty good job. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that they're somewhere in the middle with Dan Wilson. I don't think he's as bad as everyone wants to make him out to be. I think he's an easy scapegoat for a lot of the issues that I think the front office put ahead of him.
Yeah.
Last year, when he took over for Scott Service, they performed well. I mean, even though they missed the postseason, but I think there was a lot to like what he did. Yeah, I think he's made some mistakes that I think any first-year manager makes, and then that's, probably the fault of this organization of selecting him. I mean, I think sometimes you got to cut your teeth at the minor league levels and kind of earn your keep in your badge there. And so I think he's come up, and I think the use of the bullpen, I think his thinking of how he's used guys in certain situations certainly is I think, fair for criticism. I don't think it's always as bad as everyone points it out to be. I think he's incorporated, some of the new baseball guys don't like it, but some of the old school feel to it, to the game. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. He gets killed for being old school. Then he gets killed for maybe being too analytical at times and matchups and things like that. So I think he's drawn the ire because I think when people saw the hire of Dan Wilson, it just was, from management from ownership wanting kind of the past, right? The good times of 95 and 2000. I always thought Dan Wilson was going to be a manager of this team. I in fact, it's 3 years too late. I mean, I always had a feeling he would be. And I think there's a lot of first-year managers that take their lumps. It doesn't mean because he's had some ups and downs this year that he's not or does not have the capability of being a good manager.
What does it take? What does it just take, like a lucky bounce to go our way, a hot home streak? Or I'm just trying to figure out what will get these guys motivated and what will get them, moving forward. And it seems like your analogy about, throwing everything against the wall and seeing what sticks. It seems like they've tried every single thing this year. They went and got the big bats, and I don't know what's going to motivate this team to get past a Houston team. I'm starting to get angry because it's a Houston team that's not any good.
Right. Well, this was the year to get them, right?
Yes.
Yeah. This was the year to take them out with, the loss of Bregman, the loss of Tucker, the fact that Alvarez wasn't there all year long. Their pitchers, they were banged up all over the place. If there was a year to get them, this was the year to get them. And so, at the timing of this recording where we're at with, 22 games left, they're, 4 games back. I mean, it's a lot to make up. It's not impossible. They can do it, but I don't think it's a lack of effort. I know some have taken issue with, I think the other day, their comments, I think after the game, just about, when they get knocked down, they're not getting up. I think that they were honest in some of their comments, Brian Wu and JP Crawford and Cal Raleigh. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging, maybe what their issues were, but they've got to do it collectively. They have just got to, figure it out. And it has been a head scratcher. I don't know, because they were good on the road in the beginning of the year, and just of late, it is, they have just fallen apart when they've gone on the road. And part of it maybe is in their head, better teams that they're playing at the time of going on the road trips. And, I just think it comes back to the inconsistency that they have received from their starters, not going deep into games, which puts a lot of pressure and build up on their bullpen. That's just taxed and not as deep, and nor is it as good as it was in years past.
Yeah.
If they don't make the playoffs, does Cal Raleigh still have a shot at MVP?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think they need to get into the playoffs for him to have a chance. I still think that they will. The majority of the voters, I think it's closer than people realize, but I think if he doesn't get in, the Yankees get in, then I think it's just a shoe-in that Judge wins it. Yeah, I think for Cal to get in, he's to win it, he has to get in to sway those voters, because I think they'll just be voters that will say, hey, it was a great year, but a great year that ended up, missing the playoffs.
Yeah, it's pretty rare when an MVP. I know there's been several, but Cal Ripken's like the only one I can think of where a team that didn't get into the playoffs won the MVP.
Yeah, I can't remember. Did A-Rod win it the one year with Texas?
He might have, yeah.
I don't recall them getting into the postseason, but I could be wrong on that. Yeah, it's not a team goal or team award, but most valuable player. Can you carry your team? Can you be part of the answer to get your team in the postseason? And it's not like he will be slighted if he doesn't win it. Aaron Judge has put together just an unbelievable season. It's just unbelievable. Now, no one's going to debate the taxing of the position that Cal plays versus Judge, but you pull up Judge's stats, go to Baseball Reference, and you'll see everything that's in bold. He leads almost every offensive category you can almost lead, an individual player, and so.
Yeah, those stats that Judge gets, that's like 90s and 50s baseball players. Having both a high average and power just seems like a bygone era.
He's a kind of a throwback. Yeah, throwback, obviously. And he plays in New York. He plays for the Yankees, and that you guys know that. It carries so much weight.
That carries a lot, yeah.
Absolutely. Julio Rodriguez We talked about this with the Graz a couple weeks ago, but I think he's come a long way. We've watched him grow with the Aqua Sox. He went through the system. He's had his ups and downs with the Seattle Mariners. I mean, obviously he's a second-half player, but I think he's got the potential to be a huge leader on this team. But I mean, what are your thoughts on Rodriguez? Is are you flashing the pan? What? I mean, I love the guy, but I want to hear what you think.
I think he's had a very good season. You know, I think there's a lot of pressure on Julio. You know, I think the way that he started off on the scene, you know, I think I've been tough on him. I think a lot of people have been tough on him. I think, you know, when he broke in as a rookie, I think that he set the bar so high for himself that I just think that people thought, okay, he's here already, you know, putting up numbers that you saw, you know, Junior put up in his first year, second year. Now, even though Junior broke into the majors, you know, earlier than he did from an age standpoint, I think you thought, okay, that's the baseline now for him. And he's every year is just going to get incrementally going to get better and better and better. And, you know, by this time at his age, he's going to be, you know, top 5 player in the game. I think there's a lot of stats that would back up his overall play, his WAR, everything. But I think if you win around baseball, whether this is fair or unfair, and you would say, and brought a bunch of baseball people in, writers, broadcasters, whoever, and started, give me your top 5 players in the game. You know, I don't know if he would crack that. I don't think he'd crack that list for a lot of people. And I think what again, maybe unfair. I'm just saying that when he burst onto the scene like he did, and how his personality, he's everything right about the sport. He likes he likes being the face of a franchise. He enjoys playing. He plays hard. You know, he doesn't take plays off. Watch that guy run up the first baseline. You know, watch his defense. Watch how he has fun, and he gives his all-out effort. That I think at this point you thought it would have probably been a foregone conclusion that he was one of the top 5 players in the game. And again, you know, there's just, you know, there can be some unfair expectations placed on him. I think that, you know, the contract plays a part into it. Again, fair or unfair, it does. Money brings expectations.
Well, that contract's really not that bad.
Yeah, but I think he's been very good. His numbers back it up. Historically, what he's done in this first, you know, few years, you know, 4 years in the league, are right up there with some of the greats that have ever played the game.
Yeah, I was thinking his contract's really not that bad. When you look at what he produces against the other players in the league, it's kind of a steal, to be honest. But people think it's a lot of money.
Yeah, but I think but I think how it was. I think, yes, I agree. I think how it was portrayed. It wasn't portrayed as, hey, it's $200 million, and then the incentives get it to $450 or whatever it is.
Yeah,
right. It's like $450, $475. It came off immediately as it's $450.
Right.
So I think people saw that number right away and are like, oh my God, that's a massive contract. You're right, Abraham. When you peel it away, and all the things that he needed to reach and the incentives, it was very incentive laden, very performance based, you know, reaching, you know, top 5 in categories and all-stars and MVPs and all that. Yeah. That when you start looking at the finer details, yeah, it's a very respectable deal and very manageable for him. But, you know, it was sold, and his agents did a good job. The press does a good job, as, you know, the catching, you know, headline, what grabs everyone is $450 million. You know, that big number.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Speaking of, I was going to ask you about, you're talking about headlines. How much are you familiar with this weekend's Sounders game and the spitting incident?
I mean, I've seen it. I've seen the highlights, and I've seen the aftermath of it. It just seemed like a real ugly display of what was a really, you know, terrific match there by the Sounders, and just an incredible accomplishment by them. But to have it soured on the field, to have another player spit on a Sounders personnel that was, I believe it was a security personnel. Is that
director of security? Yeah,
director of security. Yeah, and I think, and then, you know, soccer. It's funny. We for such a beautiful sport, the beautiful game, right? Played around the world. It has a real ugly nature to it in the stands and afterwards. And I think what took place afterwards, you know, the fighting and that was just, it's a bad look, especially on the cusp of the World Cup coming here. Because I wonder now, is that something that's going to come along the way? Probably will. next summer. And just it's that ugly side of the sport that, man, I for whatever reason just has it and happens on a too far regular basis.
Yeah, and getting the big headlines was the Miami team, the Sounders. Nobody even showed replays of the Sounders winning. It was just that big fight, that incident, the spitting, and really sells our team short, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. I think Brian Schmetzer said it, right? It robbed of what was an incredible accomplishment by the Sounders. And that happens in a lot of sports, right? Because you don't focus in on like who won, how it's the last thing you see, and so the last two incidents that you see is spitting incident on the field, and then a fight afterwards.
Awesome. Hey, Soulman, thank you for letting me get my soccer question in. We can now talk about your Cougars.
Gosh, I don't even know where to start with Wazoo. I mean,
how about Idaho? How about the Idaho game?
Yeah, I mean, that was a tough game, obviously, for Cougs. At least it was for me to watch, but we won in the end. That's what matters. Jimmy Rogers' first game. I mean, I'm not going to judge a guy first game on the field, but give me some light here. Is there some positivity here, Puck? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, if you want to look at the positive side of it, I think that the defense looked good. I thought that and it's not just, I don't know what Idaho's going to be.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know how good they are. I don't know any of the players. I knew the quarterback just because he played at Graham Kapowsin. I remember him back in high school. But, I thought that the things that I liked that I think have been problematic for the last few years is, one, effort level of flying to the football.
Yeah.
Tackling, gang tackling, which has been just an issue, with them for several years. That didn't appear to be a problem last week against Idaho. Thought they did a great job. I mean, they easily could have lost that game, and their defense won it for them because they turned the ball over inside the 5-yard line, and they held them out of the end zone and forced a field goal, which allowed them to go down and get the game-winning field goal. So I think that's the positive. The positive is also they did not play a good game, and they won. And I know it's an opponent that they should beat. They were double-digit favorites, but they did win. I think the things they need to get better at, I think the things that probably caused you a lot of concern, me and I think every other Cougar fan, is I was excited and still am excited. I like a more balanced team offensively. I love the air raid, and I liked what the air raid can do. And I know we have a history of great quarterbacks and high potent offense, and it's fun and it's great and putting up a bunch of points and all that. But sometimes you get into later months of the football season, football is a physical game that's won inside the trenches.
Yeah.
And you need to be more physical. You need to run the ball between the tackles. And I knew probably it was going to be a big learning curve for them to go from that style of really what is a finesse offense to a physical offense that he was bringing over from South Dakota State. And so I thought they would take a lot of lumps along the way. I didn't think it would be that bad. I thought that, hey, they're going to run the ball. I thought they'd be somewhere like 30 carries, 100 yards, which is not great.
Yeah.
But okay, they committed to it. They showed some flash. They could run the ball a little bit. But to get 3 yards against Idaho, that's a red flag. And the offensive line just looked like an offensive line, with guys that are holdovers from previous regime or previous offense, looked like an offensive line that never ever executed a run block in their life. And they were getting beat consistently. So that was eye-opening, I think, how physical Idaho was against them. Now they can get better, and hopefully they can improve to week 2 against San Diego State. I mean, I think I'm not alone in this. I think I was shocked that Jackson Potter was the starter. I don't think there was any indication from anyone, people that I talked to on the record, off the record, who thought that he was going to be the guy. He's a terrific passer, but their offense has always been based on having at least a mobile quarterback, and he's not mobile at all. So I think everyone thought it was a foregone conclusion that Zevi Eckhouse was going to be the guy. There would start to be some whispers that Duggar was pushing him, the transfer from Pitt. So when Jackson Potter, I thought it was a joke. I thought whoever had it first on Twitter, I thought it was a joke. And in fact, I think it was Coug fan, and I think Coug fan took it down, because I think even Coug fan was like, "Oh my God, it looked like he was warming up to be the starter." And then I think they were like, "Well, maybe he's not. Maybe they're trying to throw off Idaho." And I think they took it down. And then lo and behold, he comes out that he's the guy. I thought he looked great. Maybe great is maybe too strong of a word, but He's got a nice arm. He's got a great pocket presence. He throws a nice ball, and he was excellent on that last drive. So there was a lot to like from Jackson Potter.
Right on. Are they?
Sorry, Gabe, real quick. I was at the Aqua Sox game. We were sitting with a bunch of Cougs, and our first reaction was, holy shit, when we saw that Potter was in. But I did watch the highlights, and we were watching throughout the Aqua Sox game on our phones, and he did a good job, like you said. So
it's hard to play that position if you have just zero running game.
Yeah.
And when your offense is based on establishing the run a little bit, play action coming off that, it's going to be a problem. I think that Jimmy Rogers, I would say that the one thing I thought they would be a little bit better at, they were a little undisciplined. They were sloppy. There were some procedural penalties. I think they're really good on special teams, minus, the kicker, obviously making the kick at the end, their punt coverage, what they were doing and the punt return. But, and I think his decision to pull him, and I understand, and if Duggar doesn't get tripped up and he goes in and scores, he looks like a genius.
Yeah.
But I think if you made him the starter, then let him rule. And I said it earlier this week, I don't want to be just too harsh, but that was a little amateur hour to play this game of the or at every position, and especially with quarterback. I just think if you decided, a week or two ago that he was the guy, then announce it to the world. And who cares if Idaho or Washington or San Diego State or Ole Miss knows he's the quarterback? So what? Not like they have tape on the guy. Never played. True. So it doesn't matter. And I just think it would have given a boost of confidence to Jackson Potter. Like, all right, I'm the guy. And I think for the world to know that would have been fine. And I think he kind of reversed that this week. I think he took I think he took all the ors off at the depth chart this week.
Right on.
Just a little bit curious about the NIL money that's available for Wazoo. Has it gotten any better, or are they going to need to look at other methods to attract talent?
Yeah, I mean, they'll always be behind the eight ball, always with NIL, just because of where they're at, where they're located, just, the size of the school, the population and all that. So they will always have to be kind of, pushing that boulder up the hill when it comes to that. It's not insurmountable that they can't be players in it. I mean, more people could be, proactive with giving to the collective and things like that. But yeah, it's you got some teams that are spending between 30 and 40 million dollars. They're never going to be that ever.
Is there a different way to do this so that they can be competitive? Is there maybe you're the team that feeds other teams or something to that effect?
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think teams like them will be like that. Well, because I think the way you combat it is you recruit high school as hard as you can, because I think a lot of these bigger schools aren't going to recruit high school because their first thing is going to go to the portal.
Hey,
so we're going to go to the portal to find, our next guard, our next wide receiver. And I think for Washington State and schools like them, they need to be aggressive with high school, because those kids are not going to be getting as many scholarship offers that they once were. Now, it's a double-edged sword because you can get that guy that maybe you wouldn't get before. But in 2 years, if he performs, he's gone. He'll just go to another school. So you've developed him for 2 years. So a school like Washington State, what's going to be really hard for them, and a lot of schools, is you get a guy in, because what's gone is you get a guy in, red shirt, sits, bulks up, learns everything, gets acclimates to college life, plays as a redshirt freshman, or maybe doesn't even play as a redshirt freshman, plays as a sophomore, but it's his third year. I mean, that's over. That's gone.
Well, I wonder if you raid Big Sky teams, maybe you can get the best players.
Yeah, but that's what you're doing. I mean, but it just trickles down, right? Because bigger schools raid Washington State, and then Washington State goes and raids a South Dakota State. I mean, you think South Dakota State fans are happy what Jimmy Rogers did? No, I mean, I know there has to be a lot of fans and alums there that are like, hey man, like F you, like you were played here, and then you coached here, and then you took, of the 75 new players, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but he took a ton of kids. I mean, he took all the best players for the most part out of that program. So yeah, I mean, Wazoo, so that's why fans can't bellyache when bigger schools come in and take a John Mateer. It's not fair. But you're going to go do the same thing to South Dakota State. You can't have it both ways.
Would contracts help? Like if Johnny Mateer goes to Oklahoma, maybe they'd have to buy out his contract and send money to Wazoo. Would that help at all?
I think I may be speaking out of turn. I think there is that. I think there is a buyout. I think it needs to be public though.
Okay.
And maybe in some instances, in some cases, there's not. But yeah, I mean, if we're gonna pay these guys, then they need to be treated like professional athletes. And there's no other professional sport that allows what's happening like what's happening in college football. There's nothing like it. You can't do that in any other sport.
No.
You can't just go poach players and then pay them more money. And I mean, they have contracts. They got to be free agents. I mean, maybe we'll get there at some point. I probably will get to a point where there'll be trades in college football, which will be insane.
Man,
but there's just no regulation right now in the sport, and it's crushing it, and there just desperately needs to happen fast.
Let's talk some Seahawks real quick here. I mean, Mike McDonald, I thought had a decent first year, obviously with the Seahawks. Going into 2025, made all these offseason additions, starting with Sam Darnold, of course. What are your thoughts going into the 2025 season?
I'm excited about it. I think good for him to realize that where they were at offensively with Grubb was not working for him. And he decided, well, this is not how I want to play football. And I don't know, maybe Clint Kubiak doesn't work out. He'll be a failure too. Who knows? But I think for Mike McDonald, he decided that maybe I was sold something from Grubb and it just didn't materialize. And they just didn't play the type of football that he wants. And he comes from Baltimore. He wants fast, aggressive defense, create turnovers, run the ball, be physical. Again, we go back to winning in the trenches. And he had hired a guy that believes in that. And I think what you saw in the preseason, I get it's preseason. It's not going to look as good as it did against Kansas City and the Raiders, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
But boy, there was a lot to like. I mean, they were physical. They ran the ball. They had a fullback, which is, a throwback to when I was a kid, watching a fullback go out there and bust a linebacker up, through the hole. So I think that, I think I'm excited about what's going to happen. But I don't know. I think all hinges on what Sam Darnold does and how good he will be. And, will he be, it's going to probably be somewhere in the middle of what he was in the first, 15 games of the season for Minnesota. Probably not going to be that great.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to go revert back to what he was when he entered the league. But can he just be, above average and let that running game take over? And, they've got a lot of great playmakers on defense. They've got to show up this year against, bigger opponents. When they face, better offenses, they got to shut those guys down. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I think they got a great chance to win 10 games. Same record as last year, but probably get in the postseason this year.
Okay.
So you're not going with the Vegas odds at 6 to 7 wins then, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. It was like at 7.5, and I think 8.5 was the over/under, something in there.
It's gone up, okay.
Yeah, I mean it's probably changed. Yeah, I would take the over. Yeah, I like where they're at. I think they've got a good foundation. I think on paper, and I think what you have witnessed from the rookies they acquired in the draft, those guys, they look good. It's more of a throwback way of playing football, which I think, and that plays here. That's always played in this city, even though this city has changed dramatically of how it looks and tech. It's Boeing, Weyerhaeuser. It is a blue collar town that likes, when you go back to the Seahawks played, how the Huskies played, defense and physical running game.
I have always thought that. I've always thought the Seahawks fans are blue collar fans. And, you can look at the Husky fans versus the Seahawks fans, and they're not necessarily the same people. And I've noticed that my entire life too. That's not like a new thing.
Yeah, I think there is some crossover, but yeah, but I do think if you go back in like the 80s and 90s, I mean, there just is a defense is always played here. Husky Stadium loud, the Kingdom loud. Whatever we're calling it now, Lumen now. That's just a loud environment. It's always the great teams here for both of the squads have always been built on defense.
How excited are you that Abe Lucas is signed for 3 more years?
Oh, I knew you were gonna. I was gonna.
Great. You love Abe Lucas. He's every coach's dream. It's just the way that you like to play football, the style of it. how he conducts himself, how he carries himself, battling the injuries. He is a no-nonsense, physical, smart offensive lineman. And I'm thrilled that they signed him, thrilled for him. He's just a great guy. He's just the guy that understands that football is his vehicle right now, but there's so much more to him than just football. And he just plays with a mean streak. And he's fun to watch play. I love watching him play.
Okay, you got your Cougar question in. Good job. I was going to ask a similar Lucas question. I'm still going to ask it. And is the next domino Charles Cross? We got to get him under.
I mean, I would hope
contract,
so.
Right?
I would think Cross has been the priority from day one, but they're easier to probably get Abe Lucas locked up. Third round pick, battling some injury history. You give him $46 million and we'll find out what the guaranteed money of that is, but that's life-changing for him. And I think where he's at in his career and kind of the unpredictable future maybe for him just based on where he's at with his injury history, Cross is going to cost a lot more. I mean, just, 9th overall pick. And he was one of the highest rated offensive tackles last year in the NFL.
Yeah,
it's going to cost a lot of money. But, I would think he would be the next guy. And there's a lot of guys in that class. Kobe Bryant, Rick Woolen, maybe Ken Walker. I think they'll probably dangle the carrot for Ken Walker this year and see how he produces. And I think they like Charbonnet, but I don't know if they're ready to commit that type of money right now to Ken Walker.
My concern is Cross hits the open market. And once that happens, left tackle is, people are going to overpay.
Yeah, they can't let him leave. I mean, they can't. They can't do it. They have built, it looks like a nice young nucleus right now on the offensive line. Getting Lucas, obviously drafting Gray Zabel. They have to sign Charles Cross. We've been beating our head for them to improve this offensive line for a decade. So it would be a massive failure if they let him leave in free agency.
Did your eyebrow raise when Sundell got the starting job at center?
I didn't know much about him. I like where he comes from the same program as Zabel. So that's a tough program. Yeah. I don't care that they're Division II. That's a physical bunch of kids, and they play football the right way there at that school.
I just wonder.
I think when the door was open, for him with Oluwatimi, that I mean, if he's not healthy, then he was the next guy up, and I thought he did a great job of securing it and running away with it, and it was I think a pretty easy decision for the team. Once he was in there, that I think he showed that he was just better equipped of handling that spot than Oluwatimi, who was given every opportunity to grab it. He just, injuries played a part into it, but once he was back, I think at that point they were just sold on Sundell.
I got two quick ones for you. It's either a question or comment. Graz with gas. You brought back Graz with gas.
Yeah.
I mean, if I give you a standing ovation right now, I would. I mean, common sense, but why did you bring back Graz and Gas?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I didn't necessarily bring them back. I just they wanted to do something, and I love those guys dearly. They've been great to me as when I was young, and both of them just great mentors of mine. And so they had reached out, hey, would you mind kind of helping us facilitate this new digital world, podcast world. I was honored and thrilled, and I said, yeah, would jump on it. So I'm just glad they're doing it every week. They're just great guys. They're just, the pillars of sports radio. So many great names that have been on the air, over the years. But those two guys, what to me is what makes sports radio or sports talk, I guess, because it comes in now different platforms.
Yeah,
the most enjoyable, because it's not X's and O's. It's not breaking down film. There's no all 22. It's two guys at a bar sitting and talking sports. That's how I like to talk about it, and that's how I like to listen to it. And those two guys do it better than anyone, and did it better than anyone.
They are.
So I'm happy they're on board with us.
And of course, that would be Dave Crosby and Gastineau, right?
Yeah, Mike Gastineau, Dave Crosby. Yeah, every Monday, Graz with Gas, Take 5 podcast. Find it anywhere you find your podcast.
Where do people find your podcast, by the way?
You can find us on YouTube. Daily shows every single day. Daily Puck Drop. It airs at 10. It's live on YouTube, live on X, live on the Puck Sports mobile app. You can download the app to your phone. You can listen to the show live, and then once it wraps up, around 11:30 or so, it all goes up on all the platforms, YouTube, and if you want to watch us for some reason, people like to watch and listen at the same time. It's a weird thing to me, and then of course all the popular platforms, Apple and Spotify, and you can find all of it up at pucksports.com as well.
Sweet. You had one last question, Soulman?
I did, or comment. I appreciate you having Jim Moore on the show 3 times a week. He's been on our show a few times. He's had, pardon my language, but he's had, it seems like a shitty, dramatic last 6 months of this year, just from reading his articles and talking to him. I mean, how do you keep him motivated, or is that pretty tough to keep him motivated?
Yeah, I just kind of stay out of his way. So, man, I let him steer the car any way he wants to steer it. And so if he steers it off the ledge, he steers it off the ledge. You can't control him.
Wait.
I'm not going to governor that guy.
After the golf car incident, is that the right analogy or metaphor?
I think so. Yeah,
okay, it is. Okay.
I think he's too old to change, right?
Very true.
You can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Is that the phrase?
Good point.
He's long gone.
And by the way, too, I was going to tell you, we tow for one of your sponsors where I work. We tow for Brotherton Cadillac and Shoreline. So I want to share that with you. Yeah,
shout out to Brotherton. Great Coug. And he's part of the sponsorship there for Jim on Wednesdays and Fridays. Yeah, thanks. Good shout out.
Absolutely.
Speaking of shout outs, as you know, we always end the show with shout outs. So, Soulman, that was your shout out for Brotherton, but you probably have a personal one you'd like to do as well.
I do, actually. There's, if you woke up today, you look outside, you look at the smoke in the air and blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of fires going on in the Northwest. And I just want to give a shout out to all the firemen battling these fires day in and day out. I have a few friends who are firemen, and just thank you guys for all your hard work, and what a tough job they have. I just want to give them props.
Well, that way it makes my shout out not seem as cool, but I'm going to do it anyway. Savannah Bananas are coming in 2 weeks. Big shout out to them. I've been following them for a while, and I didn't know if this was ever going to make it big, but it has made it big time. Sold out both games here in Seattle 2 weeks from now. Do you have a shout out, Jason?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to all the boys and kids that on Friday night this week that will be strapping up playing high school football. I think it's a hell of a commitment. I know all the other sports, have practice hard and they commit. There's nothing like football to me. And I think all these kids that have been, giving up part of their summer, it starts in early August, and they sacrifice, they practice in hot weather, full pads, and there is no other sport like it than high school football. And so for all those kids strapping it up for the last time, and some strapping it up for the first time, I give a shout out to those kids. I love high school football, and I love Friday Night Lights, and can't wait to get out and watch as many games as I possibly can.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Puck, for joining us this week. And on behalf of the Soulman, Brian Solack, I'm Abraham DeWeese, and we'll see you guys next time on the Seattle Sports Union.